everybody, welcome to Top 10 Thursday on the Mana League. I'm John as always, and today, with Shadows over Innistrad wrapping up, we're going to take a look at the top 10 worst cards in Shadows over Innistrad. Now, of course, this is going to be from a limited perspective and my opinion on what the worst cards are, the cards that you should leave in the pack, the cards that you should never play, the cards that should be the last pick. Definitely let me know in the comments down below what you think should or should not be on this list, but we're going to get started right now. Up first at number 10, we have Invasive Surgery, an extremely narrow counterspell. It only hits sorceries. That by itself makes it basically unplayable in the main deck and basically unplayable in the sideboard. Sometimes in some formats you would sideboard in a Dispel, which is the same as this, but it hits instants. You would not do that for sorceries. It's just not worth it. The Delirium upside is just flavor text as well, because of course you don't tend to have multiple copies of the amazing spells that you totally want to counter in an average limited deck. So number 10, Invasive Surgery, just terrible card. Number 9, we have another blue card, Trail of Evidence. Trail of Evidence wants you to play a huge number of instants and sorceries in order to go off with all those, wonderful clues that you could get. And that basically requires one single deck in this format. The blue-red, generally Rise from the Tide, sometimes Thing in the Ice, spells deck. And that deck doesn't even really want this card. That deck would generally prefer to just have another Jace's Scrutiny or another Press for Answers, another instant or sorcery that just investigates anyways. Most of the good spells in that deck investigate already, so Trail of Evidence is just not worth it. Taking an entire turn, playing an entire card slot to play this is just way too slow. And that's how a lot of enchantments tend to go. Slow, do-nothing enchantments until later in the game are typically never worth it. And this one's not either, so number 9, Trail of Evidence. Up next at number 8 is Creeping Dread, another enchantment. Creeping Dread just doesn't really seem to have a home. I think it wants to be in the Madness deck, so you can discard all your really good Madness spells, but there's a million better ways of doing that don't involve spending 4 mana a turn and a card slot, putting this one thing in. Now, generally your opponent's going to discard a land, or they're going to want to at least, which means that if you want that 3 life loss, you're going to have to discard a land as well, which means you're throwing away the whole point of having this as a Madness enabler. So I just don't think this has a home. It's never really gone off for anybody who's played it. There's just so much setup cost that the payoff isn't worth it. So number 8, Creeping Dread. Number 7 is another black card, and a card very similar to Invasive Surgery, Pick the Brain. Thoughtseize type effects are generally pretty weak in limited, and generally not something you want to play. Even Thoughtseize itself wasn't the best card in limited. It was playable sometimes, but not typically worth it. And that's at 1 mana. At 3 mana, this is basically unplayable. You never want to play a 3 mana Duress or Thoughtseize type effect. And again, just like Invasive Surgery, the Delirium upside is purely flavor text. The things that you're really going to want to rip out of their hand with a Pick the Brain, they're not going to have multiple copies of. If they do, they're just going to win the draft anyways. There's no way you're going to be able to beat that deck, except for a lucky Pick the Brain. But yeah, Pick the Brain, super bad. Generally avoid these effects in limited. Both halves of this effect. Avoid the Duress effect. Avoid the Slaughter Games type effect. So number 7, Pick the Brain. Vessel of Volatility is coming in next at number 6. This is probably the worst Vessel, although Paramnesia definitely gives it a run for its money. Yeah, you could play this on turn 2 and then play a land on turn 3 and then play a 5-drop 2 turns early, but I don't really care. Unless that 5-drop is basically going to win you the game because you got it out 2 turns early, or because you got it out at all, I don't really care. And at a cursory glance, it looks like Gatstaff Arsonist is the best choice. Maybe a Wolf of Devil's Breach if you got lucky and opened that Mythic. But keep in mind, the way the mana is going to work, you're going to have at best, 1 mana of another color available on turn 3. So you're not going to be putting out Avacyn. You're not going to be putting out anything with double not red in the cost. So getting out a Gatstaff Arsonist 2 turns early, it'll be nice for a turn or 2, but I just don't really care. This is just slow, and of course, any time other than turn 2, this is basically worthless. So, number 6, Vessel of Volatility. All right, let's spread the love around a little bit and talk about a white card. Number 5 is Chaplain's Blessing. This card could need to be as high as gain 20 life for 1 mana for me to ever even slightly think of playing it, and even then, probably not. Pure life gain is a bad idea. It's a waste of a card slot. Just terrible. Even if I'm up against a super aggressive deck and I need some extra life, I'd rather play a creature that could block for a turn or two than play this. I would gain just as much life and have the upside of having a creature that can do other things too. Number 5, Chaplain's Blessing. Absolutely terrible. Liliana's Indignation is up next at number 4. I received some flack on this when I did the set review. I think I gave it an F or an F-. A lot of people were living in Magical Christmas land. They were thinking about all the times that they're totally going to hit 10 creatures off of this and kill their opponent with 20 life loss. Totally ignoring the fact that that would require a ridiculous amount of mana that you're never going to get to, plus a ridiculous amount of luck to hit 10 creatures. Odds are you're going to hit more lands than you are going to hit creatures. In general, I did the math on this way back when, and your typical average deck, if you spend like 6 or 7 mana on this, is going to do like 4 damage, maybe 6. The luck that you would require to get any more than that is just astronomical. Luckily, I think people kind of came around on this, and I haven't heard any other flack about calling this a bad card. So hopefully people have realized that Liliana's Indignation is pretty bad, and it's number 4 on my list. Number 3 is Corrupted Graftstone, probably my most hated card in the set, and that's predominantly because I feel like it's a waste of a rare slot. I assume there was some complexity with choosing a color of a card, and they didn't want new players to say, but I choose forest, it makes green. Because that's not how it works. A forest is colorless, which is not the most intuitive of things. That's my best guess for why it's at rare, but I hate it being at rare. It's a mana rock that comes in tapped, and in almost all decks, it's going to make at best 2 colors of mana, and a lot of the times it will make 0 colors of mana because you don't have anything in the graveyard yet. Just terrible, absolutely horrible card. Please last pick it and then shred it into pieces and mail it to Wizards. Please. Number 3, Corrupted Graftstone. Up next at number 2, we have Dissension in the Ranks. I've seen this played a few times at my local store, or more accurately, I've seen it attempted to be played. And then either they read it again or I have to explain to them that no, that's not how it works. And then that's usually followed by a very sad noise. This card is just super narrow. It requires such an exact scenario to be happening during combat in order for you to A, be able to even cast it, and B, have it actually do something good. You know, maybe you can kill a creature with it, maybe. But the odds of you being able to be in that perfect situation where they're both equal creatures on power and toughness and they kill each other is so unlikely that this card is just awful. Don't play it. Don't pick it unless it's the last pick. Number 2, Dissension in the Ranks. Finally, at number 1, we have another red card, Harness the Storm. Harness the Storm wants you to be playing several copies of instants and sorceries, and as we've talked about, that doesn't typically happen. You know, the best instant that I would love to have many copies of is probably Fiery Temper, and I think I had a deck where I had 3. And that was like the luckiest I could have ever possibly have been. The odds of you getting a large number of multiple copies of instant sorceries is super low. Again, this is another slow enchantment too. It's an enchantment that you have to spend a turn playing probably, and it's going to sit there and it's going to do absolutely nothing ever until later in the game when the right thing happens. Just like Trail of Evidence, just like famous slow do-nothing enchantments from Magic's history. That being said, if there's a ridiculously cheap mill spell in Eldritch Moon, and I'm talking like 1 mana for mill 3, something like a Dream Twist, then I kind of want to try once going off and living the dream of drafting like 8 copies of that spell and a pack 3 Harness the Storm and just casting, you know, potentially 16 copies of that spell. It would be crazy. It's not a good dream. It's not a good dream at all, but it's a dream that I may try if that happens. But we may just not get a mill spell like that in Eldritch Moon, but we'll see. Until then, and almost definitely after then, Harness the Storm is going to be the number 1 worst card on my list of the worst cards in Shadows over Innistrad Limited. So that's going to wrap it up for the top 10 worst cards in Shadows over Innistrad Limited. Definitely let me know in the comments down below what should or should not be on this list. Is there something I missed? Well, there's probably cards I missed. You know, I had a short list of probably another dozen cards that could have made it on here. But let me know what you think definitely should have been on this list. And if you actually really like some of these cards or you've gone off with them or whatever, let me know in the comments as well. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can find me on Twitter at @TheManaLeak. That's L-E-E-K, like the vegetable, not the card. You can also find me at Facebook.com/TheManaLeak and Twitch.tv/TheManaLeak. You've already found me here on YouTube. You've got that comment section down below. Please make use of it. Click that thumbs up button. Click that subscribe button if you like and enjoy my content. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, let me know. Otherwise, see y'all next time.